Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Dipanwita Das. Dipanwita is the CEO at Sorcero. Dipanwita, welcome to the show.
Thank you, JP. I'm delighted to be here.
It's our pleasure. So, Dee, let's start with yourself. Can you give us a quick background of your journey in technology, from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and what's led you to where you are today as the CEO of Sorcero?
That is actually, I think, one of my favorite questions to answer. And what's really fun about it is it evolves and changes every few months as we come across more interesting insights about my journey to this point. I think I'd like to maybe start off by saying that I was born and brought up in Calcutta, which is in the eastern side of India, for those who have not visited. And we are a people that value education above all else. I think what that did to me as I was growing up was made me extremely committed to A, scale and build great systems, and B, inherently do something that would be good for the world. And that led me to a career at the intersection of public policy and technology, where I have used and built large-scale data platforms for collection and analysis in an effort to drive better public policy, better communications, and overarchingly help the people that run this world make better decisions. Previous to Sorcero, I founded 42 Strategies, a technology consulting firm, and was exposed to clients across public health, climate change, criminal justice reform, etc., and also really started to understand the role of STEM and STEM content in some of the most critical industries of the world, primarily life sciences and healthcare. And it's really there that the problem that Sorcero solves got very crystallized. In that effort, it became very clear that the masses of scientific content that drives decisions in life sciences and healthcare and financial services at large does not have the adequate infrastructure to be managed well. And the people who are handling this content every day, the MD PhDs of the pharma companies, the researchers, the folks who are working in healthcare at large, do not have what they need to both be able to understand this content at scale, know what is most important for them and their business, and last but certainly not the least, to make sure that the outcomes for the patients and their customers and consumers are the absolute best that they can be. And that's really what Sorcero is in service of. And that is how I decided to co-found the company with Walter Bender and Richard Graves in April 2018.
Thank you for that. I appreciate you sharing your journey and also giving some insight into the idea behind Sorcero as you saw the problem and it crystallized and became this business. So taking a step back, for people listening not familiar with Sorcero, tell us all about Sorcero, who you are as a business, what the mission of the organization is, and then we can jump into the AI behind the scenes that's driving this mission.
So Sorcero is an enterprise software company that has an analytics platform that focuses on understanding scientific content. When I say scientific content, I mean everything from literature to clinical trial data to real world evidence to data streams coming out of other spaces that have scientific terms and jargon and concepts in them and are being used in industries like life sciences and healthcare to inform decisions both at an individual level, at a customer and consumer level, as well as in the C-suite. That's what Sorcero does. We definitely use some very cutting edge technology to deliver that, but our users are usually MD PhDs whose job it is to monitor literature, to understand that, to take decisions around drugs to develop, to understand the performance of their devices, or are working in some of the biggest diagnostic companies.
And thank you for that. And that certainly helps set the rest of the conversation. To have you walk us through the journey. Obviously, you founded in the summer of 2017. Congratulations and happy 4-year birthday for the organization. What has the last 4 years been like from coming up with the concept and the various steps along the way of any startup? Can you give us some insight into what that's been like and some of the milestone wins, but also the challenges along the way?
Sure. Sorcero was incorporated in the summer, or rather in, late summer of 2017, but we only really went into business in April 2018. When I started the company, my focus was very much on human productivity and the ability for the average knowledge worker to be able to keep up with the world that is changing around them, and that they may not have any control over the space or the scale of the change, but they have to have control over their understanding of those changes so they can stay at the top of their game, and so can the companies and their businesses. Initially, Sorcero was therefore conceptualized as an adaptive learning platform. So much of the same in the back end, in the way we bring in information, in the way we make it more accessible, in the way the system adapts to its user. But the use case and the business value of it was extremely different than what it is today. In the summer of 2018, we actually made our first major pivot. And that was no longer being an adaptive learning platform, but actually being a content analytics platform, and even more so, being an infrastructure platform that was particularly designed for scientific content and scientific analytics at scale. That journey was informed by customer interviews in the hundreds across healthcare, across financial services, across life sciences, across energy, even, and construction and manufacturing. And what we discovered was that there was a need for what we do across almost any regulated industry that is driven by science. But at the same time, there were just certain industries where their entire business was science. And so we took the decision not only to move away from learning and be more of an analytics platform, but even more so focus on life sciences and healthcare and the interplay between those two major industries at a consumer level, and then much more so at a C-suite and a business decision-making level. So I would say that was two big shifts. What that meant for the company was that we have had to have a neo-perpendicular learning curve, which is probably one of the things everyone will mention about Sorcero, is that the team really thrives in maintaining that neo-perpendicular learning curve, adapting extremely quickly and iterating constantly, not only on the product side and the engineering side, but even more so on the commercial side, where we have to speak the language of our customers constantly. And the language we have to speak today is that of life sciences. So the other thing we've had to do over the last few years is bring on that subject matter expert from our target industries to inform product engineering and commercial across the board in every capacity. So we know that we're listening to the customer every day, internally as well as externally. Those are probably some of the more important things. In addition to that, it's the fundraising process, and that every venture funded startup has the cyclical process of raising capital roughly every year, definitely, where you're raising increasing amounts of capital to hit very different goals. And the other part of this journey that has been really important for us to do well and to execute excellently has been that molting process, where every year, every 12 months, the company looks functionally unrecognizable from what it was before. And I can jump into what fundraising is later, although I'm not entirely sure this is necessarily the right audience for that. But what I did want to draw attention to was the importance of doing that for our customers, where they needed to feel that at every step of the way, they were partnering with the right company who not only had the ability to address their immediate needs, but had the vision and the team and the ability to constantly adapt to their changing environment and the changing needs of their business. And that, to me, is probably the second absolute most important thing over the last few years is maintaining that adaptability and the flexibility to make sure that we're serving our customers to the level of excellence.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
You talked about bringing in subject matter expertise on life sciences, but at the core, you are utilizing AI, and obviously the title of this podcast is AI in Action. I want to help the audience visualize what it's like to be part of the Sorcero team. So can you give us some insight into the current makeup of the data team and the combination of data science, machine learning, analytics, the engineering behind it all, and give us some insight on to what a typical project would look like?
Sure. So as you correctly pointed out, the role of the subject matter expert is really important, and they are represented in our AI team, in our engineering team, in our product team, and so on and so forth. But if I can break apart engineering, which is where all of this magic happens, I want to draw attention to our CTO and co-founder, Walter Bender, who of course was one of the EDs of the Media Lab and fairly invented the category that is now called personalized content. Walter leads the AI team, and our team of AI engineers mostly have a background in computational neuroscience. So in that background, they are already marrying understanding of science with, of course, mainly deep learning. Our style of AI is marrying large-scale language models, it could be a GPT-3 or a T5 written, with ontologies that represent the field, the subtopics, as well as the domain of our customers. And marrying those two in a repeatable, scalable manner, sometimes on a single GPU, is really what drives the innovation in being able to deliver a solution to our customers. So let me give you a very specific example. One of our major use cases is intelligent literature monitoring, where our customers are monitoring massive amounts of scientific content that may or may not speak to their products or their research or a particular molecule that they're. In doing that, the first thing that we have to be able to do is to ingest, not extract, but ingest content that comes from a number of different sources and are in a number of different formats without losing anything of that context. So we do that first via our ingestion framework, which is called Ingestum, and which is open source. So I strongly encourage people to check that out. And that allows us to bring all of that content in to a knowledge graph. We exclusively use graph databases and knowledge fabrics because that's the only way that we can do what we do at scale. But once it's in that graph, we begin to enrich it using ontologies, which is extremely important to our customers because that's how we ensure accuracy of what we do, maintaining 100% sensitivity and about a 98 and 99% accuracy at a point that it goes into production. Once that content has been enriched, it then creates what you call a knowledge fabric. And that's really where all the fun analytics start to happen. And at that point, we are running analytics to determine the importance of a single publication or a single article to our customers' business. We're determining things like scientific share of voice. We're determining what are the various concepts that are in a single article, as well as in the full cohort or the full body of content that we've just brought in. And all of these things are being consumed by our users in the medical affairs teams or the scientific affairs teams or the regulatory teams in order to drive better decisions around their products, both drugs as well as devices. So that's a very simple explanation of what that process looks like. So we deliver our solutions via an API or a fully skinned app. Both work, and our focus is in maintaining accuracy and specificity, but also offering our customers flexibility, which I'm sure you understand is extremely critical for the industries in which we work.
That's a great lead into my next question. You touched on working with so many different stakeholders, and whether it be doctors or researchers, but at its core, in order for a product like Sorcero to gain utilization, the individuals need to have confidence in what they're being given, and that comes with the understanding. And you and I were speaking previously about Sorcero's design principle of building human-centric AI at its core, which is why you guys have been able to be so successful. Can you talk about a little bit about that for us?
Absolutely. Again, probably one more favorite thing of mine to talk about. One of the things that we are tempted to do in the world of tech is to assume that a machine that computes is inherently going to be better, more accurate, faster, scalable than the average human. And in some respects, that's not wrong. However, when you come to the world of science, the very many layers of nuance that is present in any body of content, as well as really if you visualize the point where a decision is being made, which is being made at the confluence of, let's say, immunology, oncology, and a regulatory, a set of regulations, that's really where the trouble starts happening when you take a one ring to rule them all approach. And when we started the company, we were already very aware of this. I have the model and I have the one thing approach, and how it tends to fall flat on its face and be unable to solve any real problems for our users who are clinicians and for whom science is sacrosanct and accuracy literally is a life and death matter. So what we've done is we've married the human being, or we've integrated the human being throughout the process. So every time our AI gives a decision or a suggestion, a human being has the ability to reject it, accept it, or give it feedback. And that not only builds trust, but that improves. B, transparency is at the very core of everything we do, which means that everything we're delivering is auditable end to end by the average human being. So they can have even more trust that we really speak their language and understand their science. And third, and equally important, is what we are able to do in how we design the product itself and the inherent goal of it. So all of our ROIs are based on making our users more scalable, faster, and less prone to error, even when they're being inundated with content and are being asked to do things that would previously be considered impossible. So we've married that philosophy with how the tech is engineered and how the platform's architected to make sure that this is always human plus AI is greater than either alone. And that's been extremely important to our customers and our team.
Another thing you and I have spoken about previously, and I think it would be beneficial to cover on the interview here, is some of the reasons it's so difficult to create AI for technical spaces, what you've seen, and then maybe give us some insight into how you're tackling that problem.
So one of our engineers is a masterful teacher. And a while ago, I want to say early last year, he had created a presentation for the internal team that I've used actually with customers and investors alike to explain exactly that. And it's titled Understanding Meaning. And the short answer is that it's very difficult because context is everything. The word elbow in a medical context is very different from in a construction context. And so it's very difficult to, in a scientific and technical space, to both understand the word, the context in which that word appears, and then have multiple different words and concepts and contexts all come together. And I will harken back here to that little mention I made of how a human being makes a decision. When a human being makes a decision, they're not making a decision that's exclusively grounded in oncology or in immuno-oncology. They're making a decision that is at the confluence of something medicine, something regulatory, something financial. And for a system to be able to help in making that decision in a very useful, real way, it also needs to be able to mimic some of that. And that's really where this massive complexity and difficulty comes from. It's in marrying all of those different contexts, all of those different concepts in a single decision point, and making sure that we're still maintaining accuracy, still maintaining scalability, and maintaining the flexibility, because the world around us changes. So when that change happens, we have to go change the ontology, tweak the model. So it's always changing, it's always regulated, and it's words. And so it all boils back again to understanding meaning and understanding context.
Yeah, great answer. I'm so glad I asked. Final question then, Dee. As you look ahead for Sorcero, and there's so many different possibilities for how you guys can help your customers and impact industries, what are you most excited about?
So many things. So first and foremost, we just closed our Series A. So I'm excited first and foremost for us to be able to scale into the opportunity in front of us and really make sure that our customers today and our customers in the future get an extremely scalable, stable, sustainable product that they don't need to exercise from their systems 5-10 years down the line, but something that has the flexibility that it can keep growing and evolving with them. So that, I would say, overarchingly is what I'm most excited about. But one, maybe three specific points. One is I'm excited to be able to scale the use cases that we already have success in: literature monitoring, IVDR, medical guideline management, things that we do, things that we've done before, things that we have customers for. I'm excited to be able to explore new problems and solving them in new ways and having new configurations on the platform, both within life sciences, but even in associated and different and new verticals. And our customers come to us all the time and say, can you do this other thing? Or I have this other problem. And I'm excited to be able to do that better. And then number three is I'm excited to have more folks on the team that marry an expertise in technology and a true love for building great product with celebrating the customer and really reporting to them. That's the first principle at Sorcero, is we all report to our customers. So I am excited about bringing on more folks to do the same.
Dee, thank you so much for coming on today and talking to us, sharing your own background, your journey, giving us the insight into the idea behind Sorcero and how it's gone and how it's impacting your customers. It sounds like a fascinating problem that you're trying to tackle and solve, which is always great for people who are interested in this field. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at Sorcero all the best in achieving that mission. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, JP.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.